Capital Inc. He will be presenting on social media strategies. So Gary, over to you.
Hi, Nadine, and hello to everyone. I want to begin today's presentation on a play of the word you would have used in the introduction of this program. You mentioned marketing game, and I just want to play with that word a little bit. One of the things that research has shown is that many entrepreneurs are utterly out of the game of leveraging social media marketing. Now, there's a reason why we are seeing this. To leverage social media influencers is not low cost. It comes at a higher cost to leverage persons with influence, persons with credibility to endorse your brand. I also want to emphasize at the offset also that while there's a high cost attached to leveraging social media influencers, the reward is also high when all systems are in place. My task here today is to bring out 3 important points as I examine social media influencers. 1, I'm going to give 4 definitions of what is or are the social media influencers. I will give 6 ways to show how to leverage social media influencers. And I will also identify 8 benefits in leveraging social media influencers. Now I'm about to share my screen. Now, this program again comes to you with the kind compliments of Global Capital Inc. and 10X B&M LLC. To learn more about what we do, I want to encourage you to go to pitchdeck101.org to learn more about what we do. Now, I'm going to move to the second slide. And here is where I want to go immediately into yes, I'm going to be looking at 4 definition of the social media influencers. Now, in business, leveraging social media influencers can have a tremendous impact on your operation. Why? Because we're talking about you connecting with influencers that may have exceptional talent. And because they have this exceptional talent, they have the public sway to influence a positive public response to your products and services. So highly influential people in different organizations, different institutions can help you to achieve that objective. Now, other definitions are individuals that have high visibility. They are persons via social media. They may be very visible. And because they are visible on certain platforms, and again, they are able to arrest public confidence, trust, and credibility, they are now able to leverage that when they endorse your brand. But again, as you think about what I'm saying, it's also necessary for you to recognize that social media influencers, they will not come at a low price. And the right social media influencers may not necessarily jump at every opportunity to endorse a product, a service, or a brand, because of course, their credibility are at stake. So these are some things that you need to think about. Another example of social media influencers, they are individuals that have international influence. One example that I want to talk about today in the real estate world, there is a name that is becoming more and more popular, and which is Grant Cardone. After many years of struggle, he has leveraged social media, where today he is known across the world as one of the top social media influencers in the real estate platform. And as I go into today's program, I will talk a little bit more about him to really bring home to you how social media influencers can impact the growth of your business. The last definition I'm going to give here is social media influencers. Another example is they are individuals that enables specific demographic targeting. And this is something that we need to watch, because you may be working with social media influencers, but the big question you want to ask yourself, are they helping you? Are they enabling you to reach your ideal client? And this is absolutely necessary, because you are not going to be investing monies into building visibility, to build reach, to build impact in order to achieve conversion. You're not going to spend money just because you want to spend money. You're spending money because you want to know that you're working with the right social media influencers that will help you to achieve the end result, which is visibility, reach, impact, and conversion. So these are just some things that you need to look at. You don't want to work with any social media influencers. You want to be specific. But things that can help you to be specific, the next slide will help you to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about here. When you're attempting to leverage social media influencers as a tool, as a technique, as a strategy to reach your ideal customers, one of the things that you want to take the time to really understand is who is your ideal customers. So as you can see, the very first note I have here is identify your ideal client. One of the mistakes that most young entrepreneurs do is to run away with the concept, to believe that everyone is your client. That's far from the truth. So you need to be aware of that. And if you don't know you have a social media influencer that is working with you, they too may not be able to reach home to your ideal client. Second, we can see here we have leverage the value proposition. Now, what this is simply saying is that taking the time to understand your client is one thing when you're preparing to leverage social media or social media influencers. You want to take the time to ensure that you know your VP, your value proposition. Why you want to ensure that your VP, your value proposition, it's aligned to the needs, wants, the expectations of your target market. It's necessary. Second, you want to be able to master the messaging content. You want to master the messaging content. Now, again, to master the messaging content, it means that you're taking time to, again, understand your target market. And in understanding your target market, your advertising copywriter, they're taking those touch points of the target market and incorporate some of those into the messaging content, so as to ensure that when that message gets out, you're able to grab the attention, you're able to pique interest, you're able to arouse desire, and you're able to move the client, the potential client, into action. So you want to ensure that you're prepared with this. You want to ensure that the social media influencers also can carry your value proposition very smoothly across to their audience base. So these are some of the things that you may have to sit and discuss with the social media influencers to ensure that they're on point and they are going home to reach your specific target market. Now, the fourth item here is select the right social media platform. Now, not all social media are equal. So it's necessary for you to take the time to understand the social media platform, to understand the social media optimization, and to understand the dynamics in relation to that social media platform. And this again is subject to which part of the world you're at. There are social media platforms that you have to depend on the algorithm to put you in front of the ideal clients. At an international level, there are certain types of social media platforms that you're able to have direct engagement with the ideal client. All right. Social media platforms are built out with a specific demographic in mind. And if your business aligned to that demographics, you're able to reach specifically with those target market and fast track the conversion. So these are things that you need to take the time to understand. The fifth item that we have here is select the right social media influencers. And of course, I talked about this early on. You just don't want to select a social media influencer or an influencer because they're out there. One of the things you want to be certain of is that they're able to help you reach your ideal client. That's necessary. Because if they're creating influence, but they're not reaching your ideal client, that could be a lot of monies and time and energy being wasted, and that will definitely increase your frustration. The last item I'm going to talk about here is define your market budget and the KPIs. Now, what this is simply saying is that there will be a cost attached to using and working with the social media influencers. And you need to consider all of this before you attempt to engage social media influencers. Along with this, you want to know what is your KPI. In marketing, there's something that we call the DASHMAR, and that's defining advertising goal for measure advertising effectiveness. You want to know beforehand what results you expect, all right? And just some of the things for you to look at. A quick example of social media influencers. We saw that M. Jordan, when he took the Nike brand and he endorsed that brand, in a very short period of time, he was able to drive sales for that brand in the multi-millions of dollars. That's just one example of how social media influencers and influencers can add significant value to helping your business to cash flow. Now I'm going to just dig in a little deep into the last slide, and we're going to be looking at 8 reasons to leverage social media influencers. The right social media influencer will be able to help you to accelerate the brand visibility. They will be able to help you to accelerate the brand visibility. Now, they will be able to help you to also accelerate brand reach. And we want to draw the distinction here because visibility is not reach. The wrong social media influencer may give you visibility, but they may not necessarily ensure that you're reaching your ideal client. So you need to be watchful of this. The right social media influencers will accelerate impact. And impact is not only based on leveraging the social media influencers. Impact is also largely based on how you build out your value proposition. Your value proposition, if you would have heard me in the last program, it must be built to have impact. You want to ensure that you're impacting your ideal customer and you're impacting them in such a way that you're able to convert first-time users, perhaps and possibly, into lifetime customers. And of course, that is the dream of every entrepreneur, to know that you have a customer, but to know that they're not just a one-time buyer, they're not just a one-time user, but they're there with you for the lifetime. And that can only happen when you take the time to build the foundation of your operation properly. And that's focusing on the VP. We have helped businesses to build out VP, value proposition, and we talk a lot about the 4 important touch points in building out your value proposition. You build this right, it will be a walk in the park to get the right influencers come on board to help you grow your brand, to make impact. Next is what we call the conversion. Social media influencers can help you optimize and accelerate the brand conversion. And again, this is why you're in business. You want to optimize your conversion rate, because the ability to optimize the conversion rate is what's going to help your businesses significantly cash flow. And let's let me talk a little bit about this. I'm on a few international platforms, and there's one particular individual that I'm interacting with. His name is John Lee, Chinese guy. But on his platform, he has quite a number of millions of persons on his platform. And he specializes in social media influencers. So he's able to take businesses, multiple businesses, and help them to build visibility, reach, impact, and conversion using the funnels that he has built out as a social media influencers. So that's just one person that I want to point out. Now, in business and in leveraging the social media influencers, it's not just about the visibility, it's not just about the reach, it's not just about the impact, it's not just about the conversion. You want to think how you can consistently build confidence, trust, and credibility in the mind of the end users. And this will give you the last results, which we call significantly increase the business cash flow potential. And of course, this is one of the reasons why you're in business in the first place, is the cash flow. But if you notice what I would have said from the beginning, the ability of your business to cash flow is largely dependent on you building the foundation of the business right. And to get the foundation of your business built correctly, it is necessary that you take the time to understand your business value proposition, to understand your business culture. And this is what's going to give you the winning formula to accelerate your business growth, particularly so you now will be able to attract social media influencers and influencers to come and support your brand. With that being said, this program again comes to you with the kind compliments of Global Capital Inc. Global Capital Inc., we specialize in helping businesses to understand debt, equity, and credit capital. We work with businesses to help them to access, leverage, and mitigate debt. This comes to you with a compliment of 10X Branded and Marketing Blue, 10X Branded Marketing LLC out of New York. And the key focus of this operation is really to help you to understand how to build a brand, an international brand, and make impact. With that being said, I want to thank you all for listening to me, and I pass control back to Nadine.
Thank you so much for that, Gary. Very, very informative. I do have a question, and if anybody else has questions, they can field those questions in the chat. You talked about all platforms not being equal. I don't know if you can go into that a little bit more for me. Specifically what platforms you're talking about. Would it be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, that type of thing? And why are they not equal?
Yeah, I'm going to give two examples. From an international standpoint, there's platforms like Fireside. And if you take the time to understand Fireside is one of those social media platforms that was built out by one of the leaders for Shark Tank. But what this platform is built out to do is, one, to attract influencers, and it creates a platform for influencers to engage with their particular audience. So when you get onto that platform, once you're fully prepared, you can leverage that platform and you have the direct interaction with that clientele base. That's one. On the other hand, you also have OWL, Owl, I think they just came out of beta stage and they have now gone into a full-fledged launch. And what the Owl platform allows you to do as a professional, it allows you to put yourself out there, and it drives paying clients to your platform. All right. So those are some differences. So it's almost like if you're cutting out the middleman and you're able now to engage directly with the consumers. All right. And there are many others, but I'm just going to give those two for now.
All right. I had another question, but I see a hand up from Anissa Berg. So Anissa Berg, you can go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll ask my question.
All right, thank you so much, Nadine. Good evening, everybody. My name is Anissa. I am with H3 Marketing, is a subsidiary of Hoosty Designs. So my question is actually, Gary, my concern for the influencer marketing strategy, that is not always something that some small businesses can accommodate, especially given the environment in which we are in at the moment. Not many quote unquote influencers can be aligned with certain brands, and it's harder to buy loyalty here. It's easier to just say, can you post this thing so your audience can see it, and so on. I think more so to have a strategy that incorporates things like the type of content you're posting, that you're putting out to your audience. For example, what type of promotional content you're sharing, what type of educational content you're sharing, what kind of shareable content you're putting out that your audience can then share with their friends, their families, to get your business, that kind of traffic that you're looking for. So I was just actually hoping to get a little bit more than just influencer marketing to be one of the strategies. So I'm not sure if maybe you would have had some other ideas that you could have shared, but that was one of my concerns. And also the fact that the issue with a lot of influencer marketing strategies is that you're not exactly looking at the follower count of certain influencers. You're supposed to really be looking at what their engagement is like, what their reach is like, and that sort of stuff. Because you can have 10,000 followers, you can have 20,000 followers, but if your posts are only reaching, let's say, 50 or 100, then what are you really doing for this business? How are you really promoting their products? So that's just my 2 cents.
All right. I do believe that you have some very genuine concern, and I want to answer the question. Earlier on, I mentioned Grant Cardone, who is one of the top real estate influencers in the US. Now, I'm going to share an experience with you. I think it was like a week ago, I was on a platform with one of the beneficiaries. Now, Grant Cardone, he, perhaps because of age, he started to experience memory loss. And of course, that kind of information, you hold it close to your heart. You don't want to tell the whole world that you're suffering from memory loss. So there's 2 persons in his life that have known this, his wife and one of his close ambassadors. So of course, he went to the doctor. He went to a particular specialist, and the specialists were able to do some diagnostic. And strangely so, because the guy's an expert, the guy told him all of his symptoms without hearing from his wife and his ambassador. And he was shocked to that. And he was in doubt as to how the guy got the information. The point that I want to make is that the doctor that was dealing with him had known their stuff. They have done the research, they had enough practice, not enough skin in the game, and they were able to build the confidence of Grant Cardone within, I think, about 6 weeks, because the formula that the doctor gave to him, he was able to reverse that that experience that he was having, which is memory loss. He was going to speak and say things and then forgetting what he has to say. He was leaving the room to move to one location, forgetting what he was going to do. But because of how this guy, the doctor, influenced his life, as an influencer, what he did, he helped this individual to set up franchises in some states of America. And the guy is currently growing. And all of this happened because Grant has a social media influencer. It's not just the talk, but he has the connection, he has the reach, and almost everything that he says turns to gold because he has that like and trust factor with him. He has the probably confidence, trust, and credibility. So because of that, he endorsed this guy, and the guy business is now growing significantly. So you're right when you're saying you just don't want to identify any social media influencers. You want to be very selective. You want to ensure that you're doing that due diligence and you're able to make an informed decision. Now, you mentioned also the high cost associated with doing this. The possibility exists that when your brand is strong and you understand business and how business is done, there are ways in which you could negotiate. There are ways in which you may be able to get an influencer to simply endorse you because of the fact that your product is good. All right, so I don't want to say that all is lost because there's a high cost. Yes, in most cases, it's a high cost, but to be successful in business, I mean, this would be a hard one, but it's all about relationships. It's all about how well you're committed and invested in building healthy, productive relationships with the right people. And once you have the right relationship, is one way to overcome the financial challenges that you may have to pay investors, to pay influencers to endorse your brand. I trust I would have answered your question.
Thank you for that, Gary, and thank you for the question as well. I also have another question. From my observation, I would see mostly product-based businesses using influencers. I've not ever seen service-based businesses using influencers. I heard you talk about real estate, but I mean, a real estate influencer would still have a house to showcase on a platform. So my question is, and I'm asking this on behalf of service-based business owners, is influencers a proper medium for service-based businesses to display their business or their brand or whatever you'd want to call it? Is influencers a good way to market a service-based business? And if so, how can we go about doing that? Also, what would be the best platforms for service-based businesses to use? And would it depend on what type of service-based business it is? I know it's a loaded question. Sorry about that, but I didn't want to lose the train of thought.
Okay. Now, from my experience, I am seeing social media influencers, they're working with both product-based and service-based institutions. And you asked the question about the best. I have seen some of those social media influencers, I've seen that they have, been able to leverage Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and many of the other platforms. However, I can say from my analysis in terms of what I'm seeing in terms of how the algorithm works within the Caribbean and how it works internationally, I'm seeing major differences. For example, locally, I've never seen a social media influencers that has in excess of, let us say, 500,000 persons who are following them. Internationally, I've seen platform where you have in excess of 1 million persons as social media platform. And to me, that has a lot to do with how the algorithm works locally and internationally. The question also, which is best, I think it's subjective. I have seen excellent results in various social media platforms, but it's a subjective question. What I want to just emphasize is that for me, while I like social media platforms that are available locally, from an international standpoint, if you can get to a platform where you can have direct engagements, and immediately after that engagement, you can get conversion, or during that engagement, you can pull somebody out of their room and say, let's have a meeting right now. And you can start, discussing business possibility. To me, is where you have greater leverage, greater effectiveness in terms of how you can leverage and monetize social media platforms.
Thank you very much. That did answer my question. I'm looking to the chat to see if anyone else has any questions for Gary. There's a hand up. Yes, Alex, you can go ahead.
Okay, hi Gary, haven't seen you for a bit. I have a quick question. As I listen to you, I try to identify some actual examples in our business space where people have effectively used social media influencers. I know there are a couple of people running around who call themselves influencers. But can you think, but I know all of your examples have been people from, more heavily populated places. Do you have any examples of the effective use of influencers in a space like Guyana? And who might those influencers have been? And do we have any data on their actual success?
Alex, you're right. Of course, locally, there are some social media influencers, but I haven't been able to do a complete study on those influencers. But some example that I may want to give, when you look at the performing arts industry in Guyana, there are many of those persons, if you go back to the days of, people like Maggie Lawrence. She has been in the influencer space. And of course, you would know that she has been doing a lot of ads. She has been leveraging her voice in terms of the commercial productions and so forth. There are many
I did some of that too, but I did some of that too in my heyday as a broadcaster. And I got paid $1 or $2. No, we shouldn't call it that in Guyana. I got paid $1 or $2. But I didn't consider me or Maggie or Ron or any of us at the time as being influencers, certainly not in the social media sense. It didn't even exist. Even as much as, let's say, 10, 15 years ago when we launched Digital in Guyana and really transformed how marketing PR is done in Guyana. And we had what we used to call brand ambassadors, where you had popular artists ×2 and a couple others who were, the brand ambassadors. I know Fruta right now has a Guyanese entertainer who's a brand ambassador. But I am not sure that outside of, let's say, 2 or 3 really big brands, Digicel did it, GT&T did it on and off, Fruta is doing it now. But I don't know apart from those, and I've been involved with at least the Digicel ones and some of the GTT ones afterwards, but to call those guys real social media influencers and to really try to find some metric by which we could establish effectiveness, I'm really struggling with that. I'm thinking here of any of these businesses. I don't know all these people on the call, but I'm thinking here of any of these businesses who are with us now, who are going to leave here and attempt to do this tomorrow, who is the kind of person they could be looking at? And we talked about the cost of an influencer, but I'm trying to think who is the kind of person, a Guyanese business, been done with Annie's Achar all night, who is the kind of person that Annie could reach out to in the Guyana space who could drive more Achar sales than me? So I'm really trying to put legs to your presentation for the Guyanese business, and so if you could just help me with that, and help like the business participants with that.
All right. There are a number of young social media influencers. I think that there is this famous show, I can't recall it offhand, that is an annual event at the National Cultural Center. We have a number of those young actors who have built up a very, very strong social media presence. But of course, we are talking here about the metrics. You just mentioned the term metrics. And I'm quite aware that you are aware that in Guyana, we don't have all of the data to quantify the effectiveness of all of those things. It's different than in the international platform because they may create frameworks and mechanisms to measure certain things. And one of the things that you want in advertising is perhaps predictability and measurability, because you want to assess the effectiveness of doing it. I think today what happened, these guys are known in the social media space, and they leverage that visibility to help the client to achieve the sale. But if we are asking how much of that visibility is converted into conversion, if you're able to measure that, I think locally there's where we have a challenge.
That's the last comment, and then I'll let other people. I see there are two hands up, Joy and Melanie. But just the last comment here. When we were debating on what topics to address in this webinar, I think I had proposed an option at one time to talk a little bit about social media analytics and the Google Analytics that we drive off of all of our websites and stuff. Because I suspect that for our market and where it is today, it might be better if small businesses had some understanding of how to interpret the data on their social media pages, for example. So they don't have to have any fancy university degree or any ability to analyze data themselves. The social media metrics are presented as a report. So you made a post, your post reached so many people organically, or you made a post and you paid $10 to boost it. The organic reach was 500 people, the paid reach was 300 people, and we have a sense of where in the country and the region those people who reached you were. To me, that then gives a local business a sense of how their social media is reaching a marketplace in which they're operating. And then if they have a website, they could run the Google Analytics. They know how many people search for them. This Google business thing that Google offers you. I'm always surprised because every month they send a report and say, oh, do you know how many people searched for your business last month? And I said, well, oh, I didn't even know people were searching for me. But there's a sense in which there are tools that are helping businesses now that businesses don't know. Everyone who's on this call has a Facebook page or a website or some other social media platform they're using. And there's data there gathered from their existing users, among whom might even be influencers, I don't know. But to me, given where we are, that is more relevant to how we help businesses in small business and GCI today than whether they could, for me, the MG example is just like so far out for my friend Annie, I just went to the fridge and put my achar back, but my friend Annie there with her mango achar. If Annie knew how many people tried to find her last month to get her achar, whether that is something she could handle more than whether she could hire, I don't know, Saiku or Medas or somebody to endorse her achar, whether she could afford that. I'm just wondering how in the particular market space. But it sounds like that's another conversation that we should extend. I see Nadine has put her camera on, which means it's time for me to shut up.
Well, that's a deep, and that's definitely for another conversation. Because I like to, advocate in it, but that's very deep. We got to also assess how much responsibility we're throwing at the sole trader. But I leave it there. That's a conversation for another platform.
Thank you guys so much for your input. I see a question from the head of our Trade and Investment Committee in the chat, Carlos Mendonca. He's asking Gary, which social media platforms would you recommend for small to medium scale businesses in Guyana to get their feet wet? There are so many options. Then when you're done with that, we'll take a question from Joy.
I do believe that in Guyana, we can take full advantage of what is available. You have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you have those platforms. But what I want to add to it, because what I'm seeing is that it is one thing to put the content out. It is the other thing to pay for the advertising. And it is the other thing to ensure that you're reaching your ideal client. Perhaps it would make some sense to have a subject matter expert that have the time, have the talent and experience in terms of how to leverage the algorithm, how to optimize the algorithm in favor of whatever information that you're putting out there. There are many other features to social media leverage that you have to go to the back end. You have to understand those mechanics. And what I'm seeing sometimes as a small businessman, you are out there looking for markets. You're out there looking for capital. You are focusing on, building a strong brand. And for you now to take the time to look at all the best practices in leveraging social media platform, that's the added weight on you. So at some point, you just got to figure out how to bring the right people on board, and perhaps the right people with the right vision and experience. They can help you to achieve better leverage using Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube is an excellent tool. So I want to say, just put yourself out there on all of these social media platforms. And I believe the first speaker, Sophia, she talked about being consistent. She spoke very eloquently about being consistent. I do believe that sometimes as you start to use a social media platform, you want instant gratification. It's not like that, it's a process. So put yourself out there and find a subject matter expert that can help to leverage the algorithm in your favor.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely getting that you either have to really put in the time yourself or hire somebody who's a social media manager or a social media expert to help your business with the social media aspect of it. It is a lot of work. It's heavy lifting. All right. We'll have a question from Joy.
Nadine, just to add, it's a lot of heavy lifting, because as I said earlier, it's not just about designing the content and putting the content out there. In advertising, you want to be targeted. And to be targeted means that you're taking the time to understand your target market. And in preparing your ad for radio, television, newspaper, or social media, all of those factors has to be factored into the production process. And that's not all. So there's a lot of heavy lifting.
Definitely. All right, so we'll take a question from Joy, and then I believe Melanie had a question in the chat concerning the OWL app. So When Joy is finished with her question, then we'll go to Melanie's question. Go ahead, Joy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Gary. Good evening, Nadine.
Hi, Joy.
So I run a small business. It's a spa, a full service spa. And last month, my social media, my business Facebook, it was my go-to page for my business, was hacked. I couldn't recover it, so now I'm building it back. My question is this: I did take notes on with regards to transition of sales with regards to whenever I put out anything on social media. And I realized that even though I had a turnover which said, you know, so many 300 persons saw the post or that, I realized that that didn't transition into sales because 80% of my business, my sales, is word of mouth. So now I'm thinking of, because I do pay attention to people in the same industry and what they're doing on their social media page. And now I'm thinking if it would be a smart, like we're talking about social media influencers and all of that. I'm thinking of actually doing practical videos of when I'm doing my services. If in your expertise, Gary, do you think that that would be effective for me?
I heard a number of questions in what you're asking. One you were saying is that you are investing in advertising, you are getting the visibility, but you're not necessarily reaching or you're not converting. And that's what I said earlier.
Whole page.
Yeah. This happens a whole lot. You know, visibility is not reach, and in business, that's something that we need to be very sensitive of. And very often you find this happen with social media also. You pay for the visibility, but visibility is not necessarily helping you to convert. Now, on the question that you asked about the business and the method of approach that you are thinking of as one way of leveraging that to reach your audience, I want to say this, you know, I'm not in the habit of necessarily prescribing unless we do a proper diagnostic, all right? I would want to spend some time with the client to ensure that we understand where that brand is at, to understand who is your ideal client, and then make the prescription from there as to what might be the best approach for you to use. All right, to get your content out there.
I've done the back work with regards to figuring out who my target market is. I've gone through training for it, figuring out, so I know who they are. But like I said, the previous page didn't bring that target market in. I had to do most of the work on the ground to get them in. But now that I'm building back my business page, because I lost it, it was hacked and somebody did some funny business and Facebook closed it down. Now that I'm doing this, now that I have identified my target market, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what I did before didn't bring them in. So I need to change something up. And this is something that I didn't do on the page that I lost.
Okay. What I want to say in that regard, I just want to echo what Sophia would have recommended early on. And she said a number of things early on. She said, be international in your business. She talked about having a global mindset. And the last thing that I recall that she spoke about, she talked about building the foundation out. For building the foundation out, or let me put it this way. As you leverage social media, as you get visibility, you want to figure out how the business can survive and strive outside of social media, meaning that you have to take that audience and build them into your funnel. So if you get hacked or not, you already have that clientele base in your funnel, because there's a lot of nefarious activities that are taking place today on social media. You have to be very careful about guarding your gains. The last thing you want is to build up visibility, build up reach, making some impact, and then you lose all of that. So you want to, as you get your audience base, you want to build out a funnel, send all of your audience back to your funnel. In fact, as you build out your website, you build out any of these social media platforms, you want to figure out how you can almost immediately send them to the back end to your funnel, so you have direct contact with them for the rest of your life, regardless of if social media exists or not.
All right, thank you for that,
You're welcome.
Gary, and thank you for the question as well. Let me just cut in at this point to say we were supposed to have Ms. Gooding on the call with us, but I don't believe that she'll be able to make it this evening. So Gary, after your presentation and questions, we're going to wrap up. We're going to take a few more questions. Melanie had a question in the chat concerning the OWL app. She's asking, does OWL include support for receiving payments?
Yes, the OWL app is very new, and what the OWL app did at the launch of this program, they allocated tokens in the form of points to persons on the platforms, and the token could have been leveraged into other platforms. Well, I haven't, in the last few months, I haven't looked at OWL. I know there are some changes that has been taking place, and part of that change was to ensure that that direct system built in for payments and to convert it into various currency. But to be honest, I haven't looked at the platform in the last 2 months, and they only had a launch, I think, was the official launch a couple of days ago.
Alrighty, thank you then. Sophia, I saw you had your hand up for a while, so we'll take a question from you and then we'll end off with a question from Melanie, who also has her hand up right now. So Sophia, go ahead.
Hi everybody. It is not a question, it's just I just want everybody who I have been listening to everyone, and I know some of our viewers are into business, and I can tell from from experience, and as a business owner, there were one time when I did not see the value, or I used to think I don't have enough money to invest in marketing. And even though you are a business owner and some of your strengths have really helped your business to grow to a level, you have to, and I'm appealing to Guyanese business owners, Guyana is moving forward so fast. And if you want to be relevant and stay fresh in people's mind in this market, you have to maintain presence online and offline. And how can you do that? It means you have to invest at least 1% of your profits into marketing. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I found, and I still find there are a lot of growing businesses, startups, they still don't see the value. Some of them still struggle with creating a Facebook page because they just settle for, oh, I'm good, I've been here 12 years. But what about our young generation? They need to know about your business, and where are the young people now? So you have to invest in marketing. And somebody mentioned about influencers as well. And yes, I always look for quality, because even though you have thousands of followers, it might not be my audience. And sometimes your message will not align with my brand. So don't always run for the crowd. Quality over quantity, that's my motto. As well as a startup, as a growing business, you can't barter. The young lady with the spa, if you find someone have a really good platform, offer them a day at the spa, and that can be very effective, because not only will her crowd see you, not only with Her Crowd, see your business, and then you can do videos, because our young people are more attracted now to videos. And that's why when I hear I was going to be a part of this webinar, I was like, listen story. Sophia, people's attention span on social media, they always want to just keep scrolling and scrolling. And that's why we have so much overload of information, because as much as people spend time on social media, when you ask them after spending 3 hours, what did they get? They just gather information overload, you call it. So when you're doing your videos, make sure you spend 30 seconds, get to the point, post if people want more and want, this look interesting. So you can always barter as well. Think like the customer. Think like our young people. Think about who will appeal to your service, who will want a massage. Father's Day is coming up. Fathers are tired of baskets and affection. They probably might want a pedicure, or they want a, facial, and men are into grooming more now. So you can look at the season, the occasion, and capitalize on those things. And bartering have worked for me. And so sometimes you don't always have the cash, you can barter. All right. So don't give up on the traditional way still. Still effective. All right. Thank you. Said enough.
Thank
Love
you
that,
so much.
Sophia.
Sophia. Thank you. All
And by the
right.
way, Gary, let me just say this to Gary. Gary, I am a student of Grant Cardone. I went to his big event that he had in Miami 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm a TEDx student as well. So when I heard you, I was like, man, I need to network with you some more.
Yep. He's a strong brand out there, strong brand out there.
All righty. I think we're going to take one more question. Melanie, I saw you had your hand up, so you can go ahead and ask the question or make the comment. All right, I guess we don't have any questions from Melanie. All right, it's now, Melanie says she's muted. Are you able to unmute, Melanie, or can you?
I am now able to unmute.
Okay.
Good evening. Right, sorry to be a bug on this, but again, social influencers have been a major part of the marketing strategy within the tourism sector. And we've definitely seen results in terms of visibility, but it's that conversion rate that we've been struggling with. And that's why, again, I'm going to ask, is there another platform or so that supports direct payments, receiving direct payments? Because this is one of the big challenges that we've had across the sector. Again, social influencers have been doing the job for the Guyana tourism sector in terms of getting us out. Dylan Efron's latest thing, the day it dropped, I think it's over 150,000 views it had. So Guyana's name is definitely getting out there. The conversion, how do we start receiving money and getting the bookings as a result of it? Are there other platforms that we should be looking at?
All right, in terms of sending and receiving money, that would have a lot to do with how you set up the business internationally. But one quick suggestion is that you would need to perhaps set up an international account. There are multiple of them. And once you set some of those accounts up, it allows you to attach various payment methods. So you could remit monies to the influencers, and you can receive those monies into that account. There are also ways in which you can receive it here or in your wallet, and you can also spend it from your wallet, because the way the international financial system is set up, you can, certain types of credit cards, you can leverage them anywhere in the world. So you can still have access to it, but of course, when it comes to conversion from US currency, UK currency, Canadian currency or Chinese currency, you may have some challenge with the conversion rate depending on where you're spending.
Thank you for that. That's useful information, actually. So set up foreign accounts, international accounts, to be able to link to some of those platforms. And I guess also linking your website is another way that most of us use. All right, I don't see any other hands up, no other questions in the chat. So we're just a little bit over time, but I think it was well worth it. I want to thank the presenters once again, Gary, Alex, and Sophia. You guys really shared some valuable information. It was very insightful, the presentations I found, and I'm sure the audience agrees. But at this juncture, we are going to end this evening's proceedings. I want to say thank you also to the GCCI and the Trade and Investment Committee of the GCCI for continuing to host these business development webinars. So with that, I'm going to bid the audience and you, the presenters, a very good evening, and thank you once again for your time.